We're back for another exciting episode of The Spicy Life. I am your relationship expert and magnetic matchmaker, Spicy Mari. And today, as always, we have a special guest in the G spot for you, Jason Panda. The crowd goes wild. Hey. Jason Panda is a thought leader on minority health, social entrepreneurship, and family planning. Morehouse alumni Jason Panda is an award-winning businessman, organizer with extensive experience in sexual wellness. His mission-driven approach has helped to promote national and global dialogue on minority health issues, contraception, and the role of social entrepreneurship in providing data-driven solutions. In 2011, Jason founded B Holding Group LLC. B Holding Group LLC is the distributor of B Condoms, the only Black-owned condom brand that works to decrease health disparities. Every day, Jason Panda is an activist to push the culture forward. The crowd goes wild for you, Jason. Welcome to The Spicy Life.
Nah, thank you, Mari. Well, thank you for having me. I'm definitely excited.
Absolutely. A fellow Morehouse alum, brother over here. So got to show you love. But
for sure.
Today's episode had to bring you in because there's a pandemic going on. And you're very familiar with other illnesses and disease. And so I wanted you to, discuss with us some of the myths and facts when it comes to men's sexuality. So
that's actually a really good question. I think a lot of it, when it comes to like myths and facts, especially kind of like with a focus on like men and sexuality, a lot of it relates to kind of like male size, right? So I'm sure like all of the women out there, everybody's first question is, do you have like an extra large condom, right? Like, and I think one of the myths, especially if we're going to talk about in the Black community, is that like all men have like 12-inch penises, right? Like,
so we're just going to get spicy right away. I was going to start.
Like, like why?
We're just going to dive right into it, nice and hard.
Nah, trust you handle the hard part. I'll be where the rubber meets the road.
Okay. Okay.
We'll make it work. But yeah, so what that ends up doing is it ends up adding on a lot of like risk factors that probably wouldn't be the case otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what your experience is, but a lot of times, we'll get feedback from women and from like customers that'll be like, hey, we tried out like one of your competitors, let's say like a Trojan Magnum or like a Durex XL, and then we tried yours and it was actually bigger or it felt bigger and it ended up like sliding off and into the woman. Right now, One of the things that I say, like, that's not like a condom issue as much as it's kind of like men need to kind of like know their size, right? So I think part of that education is realizing that like, every man doesn't have to be an XL kind of condom wearer, right? Like you can have good kind of like a sense of self, like, and what happens is when you wear a condom that doesn't necessarily fit, you're actually not putting only yourself at risk, you're also putting your partner at risk.
But what about the male ego, though? You guys always want to reach for the big ones.
Yeah. The delicate male ego, like that's by far like one of the biggest things that you have to maneuver, right? Because different men make up for their ego or like their lack of like sense of self in a lot of different ways, right? So, and I think a lot of times, like our women end up having to be the reflection of that, both for the good and the bad.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So like if things are going good in our life, they're definitely feeling it, right? Like, everybody's happy, everybody's healthy, everybody's got their energy, right? But when things are going bad or not so well, they're also kind of like that first.
We lost you for a second.
Yeah, they're also the first person to experience that side of it. So that's why I would say, like, when it comes to the male ego, it's just kind of, it's first important to understand, like, you don't necessarily have to define yourself by outside factors, right? Like, and I think that's something that's really true for men, not only men, but women as well. Like, let's say somebody's, they're getting like breast implants like that go beyond what they may feel comfortable with because somebody else had it in a video, right? Or let's say, like, got like, and I think this coronavirus in a lot of ways, it actually exposes it, right? Because like,
do tell.
Get no haircut.
So you guys have vulnerabilities too, insecurities.
Yeah, like the good and the bad, right? Like women can't get them eyelashes or whatever. They ain't got them. We are who we are, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the beauty of our authentic self as well. So yeah, so that I guess that's one of the things that I would say. Just kind
How
of
would a
stay
man
cognizant.
measure his size though? So you said that like don't get, bigger than
Hmm.
what you are because it might slip off. How would
Hmm.
a guy measure? Just busting out a ruler? What's the best way to know your length and circumference?
Like I'll tell you, it's actually like nothing's wrong with a ruler. Like,
Is it like
and
measuring
I think
tape? What
that's
are they supposed to
important.
do?
Yeah, like take out a ruler, put yourself beside it, and see where you size up, right? Like one of the things that I will say is like most condoms, right? If you're looking at like a standard size condom, right? A standard size condom is like 180 millimeters, like lengthwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say it's about between 51 and 53 in terms of width, right? Like if you want a snug fit and you don't necessarily measure that, like it's kind of like a sneaker, right? Or like a pair of Jordans or whatever it
Yeah.
is. If you don't measure that big, right, then it's best to kind of stay within that range and you'll get a nice snug fit. You won't have to worry about it kind of slipping off. And then you'll know you'll actually be able to enjoy it because you'll be able to get that sensation that comes from like a more intimate relationship between, the male penis, the condom, and then the female body or whatever. Whereas now if you're a lot bigger than that, then, the XL condom generally goes from like 200, right? So let's say 200 millimeters, like lengthwise, all the way up until like 220, right? But then that's even without having it necessarily like expand. Like our condom, we actually had pictures of guys putting it over their head.
Oh,
Like ain't no one
wow.
got elephantitis like that.
Oh, where
Right?
was
Like,
that when we were running out of masks? We could have been using your
yeah.
condoms for masks. I'm joking. I'm joking. But talk to me about though what is going on right now for the condom industry, because I have a lot of clients who are turning down, dates because they're afraid to, go out. And
Mhm.
then you mentioned, the male ego earlier, and you guys not having that
Yeah.
fresh cut, so you're kind of avoiding seeing women too. There's not an exchange, or it doesn't seem like there would be a high exchange of physical intimacy right now with everything going on with COVID.
Now, I'll tell you, COVID's actually had a very interesting impact on the condom industry in two sides, right? Now, data hasn't been released from the US, like in terms of our health departments, but data has been released from like Canada, right? And what it showed in Canada was that 9 out of the 10 of the different like provinces or different states, as we would kind of have them here, had increases in STDs.
What?
Yes, yes. And
No.
it makes sense though, right? So what happened was at the very beginning of COVID, there was a massive run on condoms, right? Everybody went to the grocery store, they bought all of the condoms. But then
Why?
at that point, they were no longer available.
But I don't understand the
I don't know,
correlation.
like, toilet paper.
Oh, they were just like, let
Yeah,
me
no,
get
but
everything because I
I
don't know
think
when I'm
part
gonna
of
be
it,
able to get this product again.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And maybe that was it, right? So they had a massive run at the very beginning. And then what happened was as COVID hit, a lot of our suppliers or a lot of our manufacturing facilities were shut down.
Yeah.
Right? So we couldn't even really source to bring more condoms in. So, a lot of people were like, yo, they ain't gonna give up that nut. They still wanted to be
Oh,
able to
that
do
makes
what
so
they
much
were gonna
sense.
do. All right. And if they had a condom, they probably would have used it. But if they ain't got it, then they just like, I'll just shoot it to the wind.
And people aren't probably testing as much right now for STDs since
Oh
it
yeah,
was
yeah,
hard to get into the
not at all.
hospitals and everybody was testing for COVID.
And then one of the interesting things that the researchers also showed is that a lot of people are now kind of going to telehealth. So
Oh yeah, doing
they end
like
up showing
a Zoom
symptoms.
interview or letting them know the symptoms.
Exactly. Exactly. Because they don't want to go to the hospital all of a
Right.
sudden, but they can kind of like in a semi-anonymous way, because you don't really know who your physician's going to be if you're going on telehealth. Then they can kind of say, okay, I have this issue with my penis, or the girl may say, I got this issue with my vagina. And then the other interesting thing that I will say in terms of how, COVID has kind of impacted our specific industry, is we do a lot of business with government, right? So like, we're a primary contractor. So, like, let's say all of the condoms given away by like health clinics or like, nonprofits and schools. So we supply millions of those a year, right? What's now happening is the government has no easy way by which they can distribute those condoms because of social distancing. So what ends up happening is like, like let's say you go to like a funk fest or some like big like concert or whatever, and you'd always see the little health department out there with their little table, giving away their condoms, right? They do that at almost all of the events, but because of COVID now, and there are no like big massive concerts, there are no like different events that they can kind of set up on, they now need to kind of figure out how are they going to be able to get condoms to the community, right? In the absence, in like a new kind of like a COVID existent society, which is a real challenge for them. So they have all of the budgets, but they don't have the means by which to distribute them to get them to the people that need them.
Can't we just send a plane to fly over neighborhoods and just make it rain condoms? I don't know.
Well, we talking about rice now? We like in Somalia dropping big bags of rice.
I can't even get my Amazon package on time, so you know it's going to be hard to
trust,
get.
I've been waiting. I was already supposed to get a package with Amazon. That bad boy ain't showed up yet.
Question. Are you in a relationship? Because it's a relationship show.
No, like I'll tell you right now, I'm like single. But I will say, like, in terms of the relationship thing, another reason why, like, you know, and I'm sure, like, you know, with most people when they're in they don't use condoms, right? Like,
correct.
It'll get to that one point where, you know, kind of like trust is established.
Yep.
So then they'll say, you know, like, is it really necessary? I trust you, you trust me, you know, I ain't gonna go nowhere, and then all of a sudden the condom goes off.
At what point do you think that it's okay for the condom to go off? Like, how committed do you need to be, or maybe not, in your opinion? I am pro commitment all of the time when it comes to, of course, you know, being sexual with someone, but everybody has their own definition of like first date, 4 dates, and then it can come off. When do you say that it can come off?
From a business perspective, never. Condom comes off.
Right, you want your sales to keep coming. You're like, I know you're married, Spicy, but you should still be using condoms. I'm like, why? No, but when someone's dating, though.
No, but real talk, like, I would say a lot of it all has to do when you get in a point at which you're comfortable in a relationship enough to kind of like share your status, and they're comfortable enough to share theirs. Then I think that that's a discussion that you can kind of allow to kind of happen naturally. One of the things that I will say is, as it relates to kind of like condom usage, one interesting fact that we found was, let's say like you hook up with somebody today, right?
Yeah.
And the guy sleeps over or whatever. Then the following morning, condom usage decreases almost 50%.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right? So like
a certain level of comfort,
that has a lot
established physical intimacy, of course.
Yeah. It's like what happens is once that level of trust is already established, and, you know, a woman will share her body and a man will share his body, it's like then there's a natural progression. And that's why, at least for our company, we do a lot of marketing and kind of promotion amongst the youth, right? Because what happens is in a lot of tampons and, you know, feminine products, whereby by 25, condom usage decreases like 50-75%.
Women already start going raw doggy.
Yeah, but it's a mix of factors, right? Like women either know their bodies, like they've had birth control for a little while, like they've maybe had a boyfriend that didn't use condoms as consistently and he pulled out or whatever it is, or they're looking for more serious relationships, right? So there may not necessarily be, you know, the stigma behind having a kid that there may be otherwise, right? Whereas like if you take that same girl at 16, 17, she's like worried about somebody calling her dad, somebody calling her mom. The dude's like, he's like worried about the same scenario. And then you have a longer term client as well, right? So you may get somebody that'll rock with your brand from like 15 to 25 before they kind of like drop off.
But why B Condoms? Why did we need a condom for the Black community? Why couldn't we just use the regular Trojans?
I think a few different reasons, right? Like, I'm a firm believer in representation, right? Like, up until we kind of launched, like, if you look at the boards, if you look at the marketing teams, none of them actually employ people of color, right? So even us as a smaller company, given I may have done 40 million condoms last year, right? But even us as a smaller brand, why should I have to, I employ more people of color than almost all of my competitors. Yeah. Right. And that's just on the representation part. And then I think the other part is we deserve quality as good, if not better. Yeah. Right. So when I talk about my condom and I'm like, you know, we use natural, organic, you know, rubber latex, you know, we use lubricant that's really sensitive to women's bodies because, you know, a lot of people may have like sensitivities, especially Black women. Right. And then when I talk about like some of like the other features, what it really does is we're then able to guarantee that what we're distributing in our community, not only is it as good as, but it's actually better than what's distributed in a lot of other communities. And then I think lastly, it's the impact, right? Like, I think if what kind of like, if you look what's kind of like happening with mass market, if no one's really looking and working with our community, we're just going to get overlooked.
Yep.
Right. Like,
absolutely.
So if we look at like, this health disparities when it comes to teenage pregnancy, if we look at health disparities when it comes to HIV and AIDS, when it comes to chlamydia or gonorrhea, no one's really targeting with specific solutions our community. Yeah, Trojan and Durex and Lifestyles will come and take all of that money, but what's actually kind of coming in to our communities to try to educate this next generation and lead us further ahead as a community. And that's one aspect that I think was definitely needed, and one aspect in terms of like why I stay passionate about being an advocate for safe sex, about being an advocate for moving our culture forward, and also just being an advocate about Black entrepreneurship and making sure that we got a seat at the table, right? Because if we're spending $300 million a year in condoms, which is what we spend, why aren't we really represented on the business side?
Yep.
And if I look at like what other people have been able to do in other industries, whether it was like Damon John in clothing, right? Whether it was kind of like in Master P and kind of showing what disruption within the music industry can look like. We own all of nightlife except for the condom. We own the clubs, we own the music, we own the clothing, we own the liquor.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everybody at the end of the day is having sex, right? So we need to own that as well, right? It's kind of like these last elements that it's now time to, a new generation or whatever come through and say, yo, we want our place. We want our seat at the table, and we're here to own. And not just be kind of figureheads on like an endorsement deal.
Right. No, absolutely. Oh, I love every single point that you said, because it makes so much sense that we would need our target demographic, so that way we have not just representation internally on the corporate side, but also externally, ambassadors out there. When we see our people like promoting this product, we're also more likely to pay attention because we know we're represented as well. So I love what you're doing. But what is the percentage of male versus female who are buying your condoms?
The interesting thing is like in terms of marketing, we skew more heavily female, and in terms of buying, we skew more heavily male. Right?
Surprise. Why are you skewing towards women when it comes to the marketing?
I think that women are more open, and I think they're more willing to support a new brand, especially kind of like a Black brand. And I go kind of like, I look at like the history of like Black culture, whatever. It's all like Black women have been the foundation of everything good that's ever happened with the culture. Like,
facts.
There would be no MLK with like literally, like if you look at this was never a strong institution in the Black community. Like, we hold up all of the churches. You may get that one preacher, man, but who's doing all that legwork, right?
Right.
And like, so in a lot of ways, like, it's our Black women that kind of pick and choose kind of like what's a proper representation, and they're able to lift us up, right? So I think from that side, like we've like our foundation in terms of our marketing, in terms of kind of like our experience, and it's good because half our employees are Black women as well. Yeah. Right. So like, we've kept kind of like in I guess like an honest perspective in terms of making sure that we include that element, and making sure that they're represented, because they're not represented by anybody else. And then I think when it comes to buying, it still is men that buy, right? So, most women, what they'll support as well, but it's funny, most women, like a professional woman, let's say 25 to 35, they'll have like a night drawer right beside the bed where they'll keep their 12-pack.
Our toy drawer, that's our drawer for all the toys, all the lubes, all the stuff to the right. Everybody has that drawer, or I still got that drawer, okay? No, it's like, when my husband falls asleep, I still open up my little drawer. Facts. But it would make sense why you would market towards women, though, because we are more likely to be interested in, open to new products and bring that home, or to, our boo, and then say, hey, try these ones, versus like, although it's very male driven in who's making that purchase, our purchasing power is so strong that if we suggest it, they will listen. They're more likely to listen to us. And that's why the voice of Queens, man, when we're in your ear, when we're in your ear, we can build an empire.
No, trust 1000%. And everybody knows it's always like the women are always the brains behind the operation, right? Like, they're like, so what ends up happening is like guys may be like, oh, why are you different? Oh, Whereas like a woman, they'll hear you out. Like they'll vet you in their own kind of ways. And then if they see like, okay, this is something we can rock with, they'll bring us on. And through kind of like that diffusion or osmosis of information, then we kind of like lead more into like the black male discussion. And then we kind of like, we're able to raise that way. But I almost think like we could almost like write a psychology paper just in terms of like how we've been able to kind of maneuver through the black experience. But I love it. I would choose nothing else.
Speak to though why, because it is still very taboo for us as women to carry condoms on us, whether it's male condoms or female condoms. If we are caught with condoms on us, we are seen as more promiscuous, right? It is, if a man pulls open that drawer and he sees a box of condoms, he's going to think that you're a hoe. Where if we pull open his drawer, it's just like, oh, you know, he's a player, but you know, I'm gonna change it. Like, it's a different perspective in how it's embraced. We expect him to have a box of condoms. We're even counting through them to make sure that, you know, the last number that we counted is still exactly the same. And if he were to do that to us, it would be a done and done. Why is that? Why is it so taboo for us to have condoms on us?
I think a lot of it is just kind of like the way, like, I don't think people really appreciate how sex is kind of intertwined with our full experience, right? So like, you know, it's the one aspect from like, let's say from when a girl hits puberty and a man kind of hits puberty all the way until like, you know, we leave this earth. That's kind of consistent throughout. Like, it's that urge, it's that like sense of fulfilling, it's that sense of need. And I think what happens is when it comes to women, or like there's always that mindset that, you know, you want like that, like pure, right? Like everybody wanted it. Like you know, everybody will say like, you know, you want a freak in the bedroom, but like, you know,
a lady in the streets,
a regular lady out in the streets or whatever, right? Like, yeah. And I think a lot of it is sexist, and a lot of it's kind of like compounded culture and compounded thinking that's been passed down generations, right? Like, and I think what it also does is it inhibits a lot of women in terms of them feeling free to have their own sexual experience and sexual journey. Because what I think it does, it really delays in a lot of ways. It makes women feel guilty for being able to enjoy sex as they should be able to at a certain point in time of their life, until they kind of like release themselves of all of that pressure, right? Like, and kind of like come to that point at which they're saying, nothing's wrong with me owning my sexuality. Nothing's wrong with me liking this or liking that. And then they're able to own it. But a lot of that's just passed down through like uber conservative men, and then people that just want to have one set of thinking, even though they may not necessarily be living that way as well.
So do women think that it's crazy that you've never had sex without a condom?
I wish that was true.
You like how I like kind of made yes, I put that on you. I put you in the hot seat. So you're saying, Jason, because you are the brand, you are the face of your company. What makes you take the condom off?
Yeah.
If we're pushing condoms and sexual health, what makes you take the condom off?
I think a level of like trust. I'm no different, right? Like, I can't like, what I can say is, yes, I have a lot more education. I can tell you almost any condom question in the world. I can walk you from the rubber tree all the way down to the end consumer. Am I a perfect ambassador? Not all the time. Like,
I'm still a man. I am still human.
And I'm just being real. Like, you know, I'm not a preacher. You know, I'm not a politician, right? Like, and but like anybody else, right? Like, given I'm at a point now where I don't have kids, right? So I'm looking to have kids, right? So, you know, let's say I start dating somebody and then we're getting serious. I most likely, you know, we get to a certain level, aren't going to be looking to have to wear a condom, because I'm more interested in procreation, I guess, this phase and stage of my life than I may have been a while ago. But I can tell you over the last like 9 years, I never used a different type of condom outside of a B condom.
Like when I did use one.
Yeah.
I made sure to use my own.
I can say, you know, when I do use them, I only use my own, right? Like,
Jason, why are you single? You know, I'm a professional matchmaker. I'm going to pitch you right now. Why are you single, and what are you looking for?
No, I'm single, number one, because I made a decision about, like, I used to practice law, right? So I used to be an attorney before I started a condom company, right? And what my thought was that I wouldn't be able to kind of move forward professionally if I kind of had, like, let's say I would have had a kid 10 years ago when I seemingly may have been stable from like a lawyer perspective. I didn't think that the business would have been further ahead where I would have been able to kind of pursue that as a full-time career. All right. So I ended up kind of like, when I left law, like you got to think I was making what, $200,000 a year. And I went from that to zero to go and build a company.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Entrepreneurship.
I don't care. I dated a boatload of women and like everybody always says, oh yeah, I'll wait. I'll ride with you. You know, yeah. Like ain't no one riding no 10 years. Like I'm 9 years in the game right now. Right. Like no one was going to ride for me like that. Like I wouldn't expect it to. Right. So I think in a lot of ways I had to get to a place and space in my own life where like, you know, I was financially comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I was professionally comfortable. This is kind of who I am. Like, you know, like,
mm-hmm.
like there's no more shake. And am I now learning things at like my age or whatever that I probably should have learned 10 years ago? Yes. Right. Like, but I think that I'm also kind of like mature enough now to kind of like know what I want, know what I need, and then also have an idea about what would be a good compliment.
What do you want?
So yeah, so that, huh?
What do you want? What do you need? We're marketing you right now. I'm trying to double your income right now. Wait, there's a lot of successful women that listen. Go ahead, Jason. This is your opportunity.
I don't know, like what's important for me more so than anything. Like I would say 3 parts: compatibility, because like yeah, like I love getting it in. Don't get me wrong, you know, like shit, I'm in condoms, right? But like I ain't 18 years old no more. I ain't got to chase every piece of stuff out there. I live the full life, right? Like I don't need to be in the streets every night, right? So like I think somebody that I can actually like be with,
mm-hmm.
that I enjoy spending time with, right? Like to me, that's like that's like key. That's like key number 1, right? Of course, you got to be attracted to her or whatever. So I think like, you know, that would come number, and then somebody that we got a similar vision, right? Like what is it really that you want, right? Like for a lot of people, you know, like they have one vision, like other people may have another vision. Like, you know, I kind of have an idea. I'm not trying to work forever or whatever. Hopefully, you know, I build a company up, I sell it off, and I'm retired on a beach somewhere, you know, teaching a class at Morehouse, right? Like, yeah, like trust, like, you know, put 15 years in 5 years, sell it off, and then teach at Morehouse. Like that would be teach
amazing.
Entrepreneurship, right? Like, and invest in people that were like me years ago, right? Like
mm-hmm.
that's what my goal is. And then kind of be a stay-at-home dad, right? You know, I enjoy kids. I had a really engaged dad, right? Like, so I think a lot of it depends upon like what somebody else would want, and if that fits. Because you know, it ain't by this way, no, we ain't changing a lot or whatever. So I think it's just a lot easier if you get some people that got a similar vision and they're like, all right, you can do this, I can do this.
Yeah,
we get to the same place, and then we're just rocking out. And then loyalty, because that loyalty piece, man, like that's as big as compatibility, right? Like, yeah, you can be compatible, but you just never know. Yeah. What happens if somebody catches cancer, right? Like, what happens if one of my boys got sick with COVID, right? Like, his woman literally had to be there along the way. Yeah. No, it's all good, but like literally, like nursing him to health, right? Like, you know, you don't need something where like if one thing goes wrong, people stop looking left and looking right. So I think like just big picture, that's definitely like what I'm looking for.
Is that the new loyalty question? Like, if I had COVID, would you take care of me? Like that's the new like till sickness, you know, and death, till death do us part. Through sickness and health, yeah, till death do us part. But like, what is women's, I guess, reaction to you when you are out there promoting your business, or you're at events, or you're even just out for some nightlife, and you're like, yes, so I run a condom company?
I think that like a lot of times, I think the first thing is shock, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, they'll first look at you, they'll kind of like look up and down. They'll be like, is he serious? And the last, like, you know, you mean like real estate, like condos? Like, and I'm like, nah, ma, like. I'm like, nah, I mean like, you know, the real high rise, right? Like, you know, we only push that like.
David, you're talking about condominiums.
So,
I'm mad at that. I'm so mad at that.
And then what happens is after that, then they kind of look to be like, yo, like, is this man like dealing in porn? Like, you ain't doing female trafficking and nothing like that. And I'm like, it's amazing where people's minds go, right? And then I think from there, then the question, like, and I don't know, I'm somebody that really doesn't care what anybody else thinks about a lot of things. But then a lot of times their next reaction goes, how do I package this? Like how do I tell my mom? Like you said, I'm like, yo, like, shit, I got a job like anybody else. Like, I'm preaching, giving. Do I promote an adult? Yes, but do I also sit and walk six like middle school kids, right, on like sex ed? Like, I need to be kind of adaptable and maneuverable enough to be able to be kind of open-minded that different people's experience or exposure to sex may be different.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is move our culture forward at the end of the day. I don't knock anybody else. Like, I don't care if let's say like, I've dated girls who were teachers. I dated girls that were unemployed. I dated girls that were like boss women. Like, then like, I've had that full experience. And like, at the end of the day, my question is, are you happy? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if
That's
you ain't happy, I ain't gonna be
important
happy.
question.
Right?
No, seriously, are you happy? That's an important question.
Yeah, because if you're not happy, like, that energy is gonna float off. Like, ain't nothing worse than being around somebody that's miserable, right? And I don't do a lot of complaining, so I'm like, yo, are you gonna change it, or like, well, let's figure out how to change it, or you got to stop complaining. So yeah, a lot of times that's been my experience.
I want to do so yes, and we're gonna get you hitched. So you can have
you already got somebody in mind.
Actually, I do. But ladies, take your bid. You can email me at info@thespicylife if you want to win a date with Jason. I'll be auctioning him off. But no, seriously, like, you seem like you have it all together. You're just looking, or waiting for the right person who meets those elements of what you're looking for. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because we want to get
and
you
another
your
thing
mate.
is, like, I lived in New York for like 10 years, right? But now what's happening is, like, literally, like, this week, I'm moving to Atlanta. So I just
why?
I'm moving. For me, a lot of my state contracts are all of the Southeast. And for business-wise, it's like a perfect move, right? So I have contracts with like Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, South Carolina, Georgia. Like, that Southeast corridor, I get a lot of money, right? Whereas I don't get as much in the Northeast. And then my goal had always been, from my Morehouse days, the moment I get kind of like set up and comfortable, return back to the A and live life, right?
I love Atlanta. I used to live off of Roswell. I stayed in I lived in Alpharetta and Buckhead. I love Atlanta.
Okay, yeah, that's what's up. So I'm definitely like, I got a big warehouse. I got like a moving my headquarters. Like, this for me is like, it's exciting. It's I'm a little bit nervous about it because I've never done some of the things that I'm going to be doing on the level that I'm doing it. But it's in a place where, like, I'm not looking to move a lot, right? So like, I'm probably going to be in Atlanta to the day I die. Like, from here on out, like, I did overseas, I did New York, I did DC. I'm from Boston, so like, yeah, the A's with now where we gonna put our boots in and make it work.
I love it. Well, Atlanta's a great place to be, but you'll be able, I mean, when it comes to condoms, we need those all over the US. So I want you to educate us more though about condoms, about sex, and some of the misconceptions that we have as far as what condoms usage is for. Like, we know, okay, it protects us from STDs and pregnancy, but what else is there to a condom?
I think part of it is that essentially the two main uses for a condom are, like, to protect against pregnancy, right? So pregnancy prevention, family planning, and then the other one is kind of like disease prevention, right? When it comes to condoms, it is important to kind of acknowledge that condoms don't protect against all STDs, right? So like, let's say somebody has herpes, right? Like, condoms it lowers the risk, but it's not a perfect kind of protective barrier, because if somebody has an open sore or somebody's shedding or whatever, they can still be able to pass, herpes from one partner to another.
Yeah.
One thing that I will also say is that when it comes to kind of like on the family prevention side, condoms only work if you're using them properly, right? So it's really important, every time you buy like a 3-pack or a 10-pack of condoms, they'll have directions in there, right? Like, it's kind of like, you can't drive a car if you haven't had like driver's ed, right? Like,
yeah,
it's important to educate yourself, kind of like protect yourself the same way. So when it comes to condoms, it's important, to squeeze the tip, right? Because you don't want your guy to end up ejaculating and then everything kind of explodes, right? And then all of a sudden, the whole purpose of using a condom is null and void because somebody didn't use it properly.
I bet you that's something people don't know though. That you got to squeeze the tip because if they come, it's gonna explode everywhere. Most people don't probably even know that.
Like, not only that, like I think that there was a stat that basically said like cum travels at about 30 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like,
That's powerful. That's why we're going to have a lot of Corona babies.
Yeah. So like, so what ends up happening is, and one good thing about like, not only our condoms, but some of the other condoms on the market is that, they're triple tested, right? So what that means is that, one test is the electronic pinhole test. So like you'll almost like an infrared kind of like test where where the condom will spin and it'll be able to test for small holes that the eye wouldn't be able to recognize, right? And then another test that, we'll do like lot tests for like an air pressure test. So what that is, imagine like you blow it up like a balloon,
yeah,
and you see at what elasticity does it burst, right? And then it's supposed to burst between like, and that'll kind of tell you internally how strong that batch of condoms is. And then the last one is similar to that, but it's like it's a water leak test. So you'll fill it up with water, almost like a water balloon, and then you'll see literally like how much water can it fill before it bursts.
wow.
And that's why like even all of the condoms that come here, like we're registered with the FDA every year. We pay tens of thousands of dollars in insurance alone because each condom is like a potential lawsuit. So like
I was just going to ask you that. How do you protect yourself from your business of protection?
Oh my gosh, like yeah. Like, and that's why a lot of times like people will be like, I want to get into the condom game. I'm like, my man, you got no idea.
Yeah.
Like it ain't all what it's made out to be. Like it's an expensive business to run because the way it is we make a few cents on every product that we distribute. So if we're not selling like the volume that like we're selling, right? Like for me, and I sell government, right? Like I sold 40 million condoms last year, but did I make 40 million? Hell no, I wish I did.
How much is
you 40? You see me rolling with my Rolls Royce and all of that. Like.
Yeah, no, but like where would we buy your condoms at though? Because if we're not familiar with them, what store should we be going into?
Yeah. So no, like right now, like you can get them online. You can get them on like bcondoms.com. You can also get them on like Amazon. Those are like the retail spots. We're actually beginning to roll out our retail. So by 2021, like, Corona slowed things down a little bit, but by 2021, we'll be in most stores. And then also you can get them at like most, like given like the health departments or whatever. So we have a contract with California. So like some of the different areas in California, like some of the different regions will carry our condoms. We're a prime contractor for like the state of Illinois. So like we ship, 10, 20 million condoms a year to them. And then, like if you're in any southeastern state, we're moving, a couple of million condoms through there every year.
Now I know you said you have more clients in business in Atlanta, but talk to me about the United States though. Who has more sex? What states in the U.S. are getting busy the most, having the most condom purchases?
Like, no, that's actually a good question. Like, the funny thing about that is like, I read a stat on this maybe like last year or so. The U.S. is actually like in the top 3 in terms of like how sexually active their men are, or how sexually active their people are. Which to me was like really interesting. I forget like some of the other states. I think like Nigeria was up there. I think they may have had like the UK or like Finland or one of them places or whatever, and then the US was up there as well. But we're definitely, people are definitely getting it in here, and you can definitely see that by the numbers.
Yeah, where I'm like, we want to make sure that we grow your business though, because what you're doing is great for the community. And I think that sex can also be an uncomfortable and taboo conversation that people aren't having enough of. So when you do want to know someone's status, if they are safe or not, how do you suggest bringing up that conversation?
Now that like, I think a lot of it has to deal with timing, right? Like, everybody kind of makes a joke, like, a woman will know if she wants to sleep with you in like the first 10 minutes or so, right?
First 30 seconds.
I think, how long does it take you, Mari? Like, how many minutes?
You have to mentally mind fuck me. So because of that, and I like the chase, then it takes me 3 months. But,
3 months?
Ask me in my 20s now.
Ain't nobody waiting for 3 months.
I'm joking. No, I know usually like based off of first conversation, but statistically though, it's within the first 30 seconds. They know if they want to sleep with you or not.
Wow. So no, like things like that are very interesting, right? So I think what happens is once that kind of like decision is made, then it's kind of like properly planning with like, what does condom negotiation look like? And the funny thing is like, there's this whole research field right now that's known as like condom negotiation. Like, how do you negotiate that point at which somebody brings up a condom?
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens a lot of times is you may have a guy that may take it out of his pocket just to kind of show it with no intent on using it. Right. And like, or you may have like a woman which may say, you know, I want to use a condom.
Yep.
But the man will be like, and then she won't know how to kind of come back and be like, nah, dude, I'm really serious.
No,
right?
yeah, we need to use this.
And then the last aspect that ends up being very difficult is situations where like they'll be engaged in sex and then a man will take it off, right? Like, and then be able to kind of like, yeah.
So ladies, we have to be mindful. We got to watch him.
Yeah, you know, if my man hitting it from the back, you better like, you know, put your hand back in.
Double check. But sometimes too, there's situations where a woman, in order to feel closer to you, in the hopes that you're not sleeping with someone else, will also tell you to take it off if you guys have been wearing it, thinking that, oh, well, now you're sleeping with me, which means you're not sleeping with anyone else, which is very untrue. That just because he takes it off does not mean that you are the only one trying to be the only one. Mm-hmm. So we have to continuously be mindful of that in our intimate experiences, right?
Yeah. No, that and you're 1,000% right there. And then a lot of times the truth is, a lot of people just genuinely don't like using condoms.
I mean,
right?
They don't feel as good though. And I am pro condom usage, but I know that has come out of my mouth, and I will be honest and transparent with you. It is a different feeling, like you know, and that is the number one thing that people's argument is of why they wouldn't wear them. It's not even about not having them. It's, you know, it's a different feeling. What's your rebuttal to that?
Mm-hmm. And I would say this, and I think a lot of that also has to deal with like the age of the partner as well, or like how well somebody is in shape, right? Like, the truth is there a different feel with a condom than without? Yes, right? But one thing is, different people like different experiences, right? Like some guys want a super tight fitting condom, right? Like, because they feel like they like it allows them to have, you know, like a more intimate feel, right? Some women may prefer like a rib condom, right? That has like little like ribs or whatever on the side, or like a studded condom, right? Or like, you know, I think what it really kind of becomes is like, for example, we offer 12 different types of condoms.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like,
there's
not all for retail,
different
but
types of condoms you can have.
Nah, trust me, we got like tropical flavors, tropical colors.
Oh, okay,
you know, ultra sensitive, ultra thin, like whatever you want. Chances are there's a government out there that has it, right? So like, I think what it becomes really is the education part, and I think all of this always kind of comes back to education, right? Like, learn what it is about you that gets you there, right? Because at the end of the day, if you ain't climaxing, you ain't really doing it right. Like, something's got to change.
Correct.
Right? Like, you're really only doing it to ease that sensation and to kind of like, you know, and otherwise people get real edgy. Like, you know how many people like on edge right now with this corona and not being able to kind of like release that energy?
Yeah. Like, a lot of sexual tension going on right now.
Yeah. And that's real. It ain't nothing wrong with that. So I think when it comes to it, yes. Is there a different feel with the condom than without? Yes. And I'll acknowledge it. But can you get to like 80% of what you would genuinely like with a condom?
Yeah.
Yes. And is that other 20% worth having a feeling that if she gets pregnant, I'm going to be mad as hell at myself? Or if this guy wouldn't burn her up or whatever, like, is it really worth that? Like, you know, you gotta take like high level, all factors into place, right?
Points. Let them know, right? Because we don't want any excuses. I'm married now, so I can go out around like as I want. But when it comes to, you know, when you are single or in a relationship, even, you want to make sure that you 100% trust the partner that you're with. And even when before I was married, if I did decide to ever take the condom off, it was always a conversation about, when am I going to get your test results? Here's mine. Where are yours at? Before I went there. No, because I'm serious. I'm like, wait, I have too much to lose.
The truth is, dude, there's some grimy dudes in these streets, right? Like, dudes would be like, she got to be clean. The doctor, she ain't coming back, then I know I'm good. Like, literally, that's a lot of like that's how a lot of men will approach it. Like, I know she clean. I had sex with her. She ain't tell me nothing, so I know I got to be clean. My man, like, that is not like.
Come on. In all honesty and in all seriousness, you want to go into such an intimate and vulnerable place of being, you know, naked and with a partner feeling 100% safe and secure. It will make the sexual experience a whole lot better as well when you know your status and you know your partners as well. And so having that conversation, or even the, sharing test results, even if you do wear a condom, test result exchange it may not sound like it's the sexiest, gift to give, but it is preventative, and you will thank yourself later for knowing what the status of that partner is.
Yeah. Because now, like, trust, like, we get a lot of emails. Like, literally was going through emails the other day, like, can you all direct us to like a health center or something like that? The girl that had sex with a guy, all of a sudden she has like a UTI, right? Like, and she's like, I don't know if it was because like the guy wasn't clean. Then she, and when she was explaining it, she was like, dude already knew exactly like what medication she should be taking. So it's like, my man, you knew
wow.
you weren't living right. Like,
wow.
if you're like, yo, try to get that, like, they got it at so.
Wait, she didn't have a UTI, then she had an STI. Because a UTI would just be that would be just
like
be,
a urinary tract infection.
Yeah, a urinary tract infection. But if he knows like the antibiotics and everything, he gave her a STI. Oh no.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So,
see, you want to be able to have enjoy yourself.
And I'll tell you something interesting as well. Like, we'll do a thing called Platinum Talk, which is like, we'll invite like different like experts or whatever from like different like communities or different areas that may and somehow kind of like relate to condoms. So yesterday we had the sex educator on there. One of the interesting topics she was talking about was like the duty to disclose, right? So like in some states, it's people aren't required to tell you if they're HIV positive, right? So like now imagine you went and had sex with like this guy, whatever, y'all did your due. Y'all are in a relationship, and then like 2 or 3 months later, he kind of like tells you, baby, I didn't know how to tell you, whatever. Then you're faced with that situation, right? Like, and there are things called like PrEP, which may kind of like be able to decrease, the odds of somebody being able to transfer it. But there's a lot of issues that you'd rather know on the front end, right, than on the back end, right? But the same is kind of true with like, I just realized you don't need to be sleeping with everybody, man. It ain't worth the stress. Like, it'll end up really costing you. Like, I had boys, got the wrong woman pregnant, right? And they paid for that. Like, they love a kid. Don't get me wrong. They love to be a dad all day. But if you end up in the wrong relationship, man, like, it really adds like a level of stress onto your life that just, it ain't worth it a lot of times.
So the moral of the story is exercise caution and wisdom as much as possible by wearing your condoms. I'm even going as far as telling, as a matchmaker right now, I'm setting up Zoom dates and FaceTime dates. And I always let them know in advance, like, okay, this is, you on, video chat, but wear a screen protector. So I make sure like have your cell phone in a screen protector. You never know. No, I'm joking. But the second phase of, if they decide like that they're going to, see each other, I can't, as much as, the spicy life is like, we do not condone you guys seeing each other right now during, COVID, you should be quarantining. Sometimes people take it upon themselves to, go out and see one another. And so, it's, if anything, the first question is, oh, do you have you been quarantining? Do you have COVID? Have you been tested yet? We're asking that before we would even ask if they have an STD and we're going to go hook up. Like, how come we are so pushing asking about Corona, but we're not pushing asking about someone's, STD status? Why are we so comfortable with that question?
But the interesting thing is that's also what's happening in the health department as well, right? Like, all of the funds are moving from like STDs into Corona, right? Like,
what? So really?
Like, yeah, like, you got to think all of these governments, like all of this Corona response stuff, like that money has to get pulled from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So on their side, like, if the health department, let's say, has $10 and let's say 4 of it used to go towards STDs, now STD may be able to get like 1 or 2, and the rest of that's going towards Corona.
Wow.
But I really worry as much about like getting STDs. Like, I think a lot of times people are more worried about like, there's really like the 2 kind of like incurable ones, like herpes or HIV. Like, I've known guys be like, yeah, you catch chlamydia, don't worry, you just go on a 7-day session, Like, you just get a shot in the booty if you get that gonorrhea. Like, and they're good with that. Like, they're like, yo, I owe it to I hurt myself, I'll own it, and it'll be gone in 7 days, right? Like, whereas the things that really concern folks are things that you can't turn back the clock on.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're praying, oh, baby, don't, Lord, don't do this, don't do me wrong. Like,
but even if you give,
they find out, like, you know,
no, but even if you give, you know, the chlamydia or gonorrhea, yes, there's, you know, an antibiotic that you can take for that. But if your partner doesn't know that she has it, or, you know, he doesn't know that he has it and he's spreading it to other people, not everybody is getting tested and finds out that they have it. So that turns into other health complications later on down the line. If you were, you know, if you have that and you don't know. And so that's why it's still, again, let's reiterate.
1,000%.
Condom. No matter what, use a condom. Use a condom. I really do. I am a huge advocate, like, of safe sex. So that's why when I found out about your company, I'm like, oh no, I have to have Jason, you know, come and talk about this, because we're not talking about it enough. We're so focused on talking about wearing masks that we're not reiterating to everyone to continue wearing condoms. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see a huge surge after Corona, after they let us back out.
Nah, trust, like that. Like, that's something I would actually welcome. And I think part of the reason that, you know, we're so happy kind of like in our product is because some of the features and what we know it provides a community, which may have not existed to the level that we brought it now, right? Like, one of the things that women really love about our condom is it has no scent. It has no, like, smell to it, right?
Oh,
like,
nice.
One of the biggest issues that we always heard about, like, whether it's Trojan or like, you know, it has like that strong condom scent. You know, we had to invest heavily to make sure that we got that out of our kind of manufacturing process so that the end product was a lot more kind of like natural and a lot more organic, right? Like, you know, when we invest on the lubricant side, we invested and tested that to make sure that it would be more sensitive and more accommodating of women's bodies, right? Like, you know, given we may have been small, kind of like, but we always had big dreams, right? So it's like, you know, you always kind of move forward with the mindset that you really want to make sure that what you're passing around in the community is actually better than the competitors. Because a lot of times people look at me like, you know, like, how do I know your stuff is good, right? Like, or how do I know? And if I try to cut those corners, I could be exposed. Right. So it may take me a little bit longer to grow, but I know that, like, I'll put my condom up against anybody's at anything, right? Like, because I know what it is.
Competition.
Right? Like, I know the whole operation. Like, I know what I'm up against. And because I think I have that level of expertise, I'm just a lot more confident in what I'm doing and how I'm saying it.
Give me the spark, the moment. I know you said you were previously a lawyer and you wanted to start your own company, but why condoms? Like, what was it a person? Was it a thing that you were like, you know what? I think condoms is what I'm going to create? Because that is such a random, you know, rubber. I mean, that's like a random product to decide to push. I mean, I'm in the relationship industry and I push love, but it's very similar in the sense that it's such a niche of what you're doing, you know? What sparks that?
I think, so for me, what happened was, like, before I went into law, I used to have like a tech company, right? And then what happened was, you know, the market collapsed like in 2009 or whatever. We had already had like venture capital funding and all of that. And I never thought I was going to have to work again in my life, right? But one of the things that happened around that period is I dealt with a lot of racism and stuff like that, right? And then I also dealt with like the challenges trying to raise money as a Black man, right? So one of the things that I looked at, and I dealt with like market factors, right? So when I left that experience, I had kind of like a few requirements. One was that I would develop a business that would be made for and customized to the Black community, right? So when I looked at like the Bob Johnsons, when I looked at the Black folks that really made a lot of money, a lot of times it came out of the community. They came and were like, yo, we're going to own this, at least for Black people. Right? Then, so that was one part. I think the next part was, you know, I wanted something that would be recession proof. Right. So I looked at two industries. Really.
You're preparing for COVID.
Like COVID hit and I'm like, I'm good. Like, y'all ain't like we may get a little like bump here or there, but like we ain't closing doors. And the two industries that I looked at were caskets and condoms.
Wow.
And I was like, yo, people are gonna, because I looked at all of the Black funeral homes and I'm like, yo, who owns these caskets? Got to get passed through there. I didn't see a Black company. Right. So I'm like, yo, you already have established distribution where you could literally sell through all of these like Black funeral homes. And then I looked at condoms. And then the reason why I picked condoms was that like the minimum order was a little bit lower and I need a little bit of money to, and I figured I could self-finance it, right? Whereas like caskets would have been a little bit more challenging because, you know, when you bring them over in a container can only hold so many. So you got to have a lot more kind of like upfront money. And then the last part that I wanted, because I was a bio major, right? Initially, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I thought all of that. Then went into law and became like a patent attorney like that. I was burnt with that. Like I've lived like 9 lives, right? Like, and I wanted to really have an impact. And then like growing up, like, you know, my mother used to run a detox and transitional care facility for like drug addicts and crack addicts and alcohol. And she and I were talking, we were like, you know, why is it that all of these, you know, organizations give away all these condoms, but none of us own them? Right? Like, and she was like, you know, that's a good idea. And then immediately when I saw it, I was like, the last element of nightlife.
So we
right? Because, you know, everybody thinks about like, you know, I'm young, I'm black, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get big. I'm going to be like Ciroc in the hand, like, you know, living my life. But that didn't end up being it. But those were kind of like the 3. I wanted a community impact. I wanted to deal almost exclusively in the black community where I wouldn't have to worry about nothing white. And then, you know, I wanted something that would be recession proof so that like I would have my own sense of stability regardless of what would happen, because I didn't want to wake up like, let's say like Corona hits right now. I don't want to be at this stage and place in my life and having to figure out how do I start over again.
Yeah.
Right. So
which is challenging. A lot of people are going through that.
Yeah. But I semi kind of planned for it years ago.
No, that's incredible. And I'm happy that you didn't go with caskets in preparing for our death and you decided to give us condoms and help save our lives instead. Great job, Jason. Shout out to Jason's mom, Mrs. Panda. If you are listening, good job in sparking that in your son's mind. We definitely appreciate you, you know, helping provide our community with this product. I want to like make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be able to try them and to use them. I want them to support your business. So you're going to have to let, once again, everybody know where they can buy them, where they can find you. Ladies, email me if you want to holler at Jason. I will give it to the highest bidder. No, but let everybody know where to find you for real.
Yeah. So no, if you want to find us, definitely follow us. You can follow us at B Condoms, just the letter B, Condoms with an S. If you want to buy it, we definitely appreciate all the support. You can buy us at B Condoms, just the letter B, Condoms with an S, .com. And then if you use the code BSAFE, you'll get like 20 or 25% off your purchase. So, you know, definitely use the code. And if you don't buy us from there, you can also get us on Amazon, and they have like next day delivery and all of that.
Beautiful. You guys buy Jason's condoms, B Condoms. And you guys know you can always play with my Twitter or stroke my Instagram at SpicyMari. Go to thespicylife.com, click and subscribe. Make sure that you share this episode with a friend. And there you guys have it. You have just been spiced. The Spicy